In this video, we're going to talk about common phrases and terminology you may come across if you're buying a new construction condo in New York City. I'm Nick at HouseIt. If you are buying in the city, we can save you money through a buyer agent commission rebate. We can get you 2% back on the purchase price, possibly more. You can learn more by visiting our website, housit.com, or give me a call directly, 888-494-8258. Option 1 goes directly to me. So let's go ahead and get started. One common phrase you'll hear if you're buying a new construction condo in New York City is New York City and New York State transfer taxes. Now, this may be a bit unusual if it's your first time buying a new construction because you may otherwise be accustomed to hearing this phrase in the context of seller closing costs. And it is the case traditionally in New York City that the seller is the one who pays transfer taxes, city and state transfer taxes on a resale. But the convention actually flips when it comes to new construction. It's the custom that the purchaser, not the developer, will cover the New York City and New York State transfer taxes, as well as other things such as the sponsor's legal fees. Imagine that you're the buyer and you have to pay for the seller's attorney. But that is the convention for new construction in New York City, but it is all negotiable. So do keep that in mind. Most of the time when we're buying or when we're helping our clients buy a new construction property in New York City, we are getting the developer to agree to pay for New York City and New York State transfer taxes. We have an interactive calculator on our website. You can check out our transfer tax calculator, but even better for you to try out our New York City buyer closing cost calculator, which is specifically designed for new developments. The link for that is above and below in the description. Buyer agent commission rebate. Now, this is one of the most important phrases. You're unlikely to hear this directly from the sales office, but what this means essentially is if you work with a buyer's agent, such as ourselves at HouseIt, who will agree to give you back a portion of the commission that the developer pays, it's essentially a way for you to receive a considerable discount, perhaps 2% or more on your purchase price. So again, that phrase is buyer agent commission rebate, because as your buyer's agent, we are rebating you a portion of the commission that is paid to us by the developer. And buyer agent commission rebates are actually extremely important for new developments in particular, because closing costs for new developments are much higher than for traditional resales. And moreover, developers typically pay some of the highest buyer agent commissions. For example, we recently closed a transaction in a building right behind me next to that bridge, and that developer was paying us 5%. So we were giving back the buyer considerably more than 2% in the form of a cash rebate at closing. So if you are looking to buy and you do want to save money, get in touch with us. We can tell you more about it and hopefully potentially be able to assist you and save you a bit of money on your purchase. Housit.com, the link is below. Another phrase you'll come across if you're buying a new construction condo in New York City is purchase CEMA. Now, this is fancy jargon for what is essentially a mortgage assignment. Specifically, a purchase CEMA allows the seller, in this case a developer, to assign some portion of their construction loan to you as the purchaser. Now, this doesn't mean you assume whatever the developer's interest rate is, but rather it is merely a paperwork mechanism for us to reduce the amount of new mortgage that is recorded. And by doing so, it reduces the mortgage recording tax, which is one of the largest closing costs for buyers in New York City. I can't guarantee that a developer or a development will be a candidate for this, because if a developer has bought the property in cash and they haven't recorded anything, there wouldn't be anything to assign. But in the event that there is some sort of loan outstanding on the property that's been recorded previously, it's a great new tool that you can throw into the mix when you are negotiating. Another phrase you may hear, or an acronym in this case, is an RMU. Now, this basically refers to the resident manager's unit contribution. So this only is a factor if you're buying an apartment in a building that's going to have a live-in super. That live-in super will need a place to live. So essentially what they do is everyone else who's buying, in addition to yourself, has a mandatory pro rata share of the apartment for the super that you basically have to pay for. So, whether the building you're buying into has a doorman or no doorman, this could be a very big line item. For example, we're negotiating a deal right now on a property in Midtown East. The RMU for a $985,000 apartment is roughly $15,000. So definitely, if you are looking at new developments, Check out our buyer closing cost calculator. You can actually input the RMU. You can also toggle for various assumptions as to what the sponsor might cover in terms of your closing costs. And you can write in the RMU amount specific to your development. Another phrase you may come across if you're buying a new development in New York City is the working capital contribution. This is a fairly nominal closing cost, and it's typically something like 2 or 3 months of common charges. What is it for? Well, it's essentially to allow the building to commence operations without having essentially no money at their disposal. So you want the building's budget to start and their account to have some amount of cash, some amount of liquidity in it, and that's what the working capital contribution allows them to achieve. Another phrase you may come across if you're buying a new development in New York City is the outside closing date. What does this refer to? Well, the outside closing date is essentially the drop dead date that the developer has to basically complete and allow you to close on your apartment. So this is essentially like a backstop. Consider it like a very, very low probability risk mitigator in the event that, let's say the developer goes bankrupt or something crazy happens and the property just literally just never gets completed. So the outside closing date is negotiable. In all fairness, it's typically negotiated more by the attorneys as opposed to your buyer's agent, but it is just something to keep in mind, especially if you're buying into a smaller new development, and even more so if the developer is relatively unknown or if they just haven't closed or done too many similar projects in the past. Now, obviously the risk of an outside closing date or triggering an outside closing date is much lower if you're buying from a massive developer in a huge building, which obviously has a reputation and a track record that they need to defend. So we went over just a few interesting phrases and acronyms that you may hear if you're buying a new development property in New York City. Just remember that the most important one of all is the concept of a buyer agent commission rebate. This can save you 2%, possibly more, in terms of the purchase price. It's a great way to lower your closing costs, which are higher for new developments to begin with. If you do want to receive a buyer agent commission rebate, we can help you here at Houseit. Check us out. The link is below in the description. And again, feel free to get in touch with any questions or you can leave a comment below. I'm Nick at Houseit, and we'll see you on the next one.